Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Maya.
And I'm Ethan. It's wonderful to have you with us today. Whether you're listening while driving, cooking, walking, or simply relaxing, thank you for spending some time with us.
Have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, why didn't I say what I was really thinking?
Or maybe you had the perfect sentence, but only after the conversation was over.
I think almost everyone can relate to that feeling. You replay the moment in your mind, imagine a better response, and wonder why speaking seemed so difficult in the moment.
And what's fascinating is that the problem often isn't a lack of knowledge. Many people know exactly what they want to say. The real challenge is that their thoughts become so loud that their voice becomes quiet.
That's such an interesting way to put it.
It really is. Our minds are incredibly powerful, but sometimes they try so hard to protect us from embarrassment or rejection that they accidentally stop us from expressing ourselves at all.
Which brings us to today's topic, why overthinking silences your voice.
We'll explore why our brains overthink simple conversations, how fear and perfectionism quietly shape the way we communicate, and most importantly, how we can build the confidence to speak more freely, not only in English, but in everyday life.
Because this isn't just about language.
It's about being heard.
You know, something happened to me recently that reminded me of this topic.
Really?
I was in a bookstore, and another customer asked me if I'd read a particular book. I had, and I actually loved it. I wanted to tell them why I enjoyed it, what I learned, and even recommend another book.
Sounds like a great conversation waiting to happen.
Exactly. But instead, I smiled and simply said, "Yeah, it's good."
That's all?
That was it. The conversation ended a few seconds later, and as I walked away, all the words suddenly arrived. I thought, why couldn't I say any of that when it mattered?
Isn't that amazing? Our best conversations often happen in our imagination. 5 minutes too late.
Exactly.
And I don't think that happens because we're bad communicators. I think it happens because our brains are busy doing something else.
What do you mean?
Instead of focusing on connecting with the other person, our attention turns inward. We start monitoring ourselves.
Almost like we're watching ourselves from the outside.
Yes, we begin asking silent questions. Do I sound intelligent? What if this sounds strange? What if they disagree? What if I say the wrong word?
And while we're answering those questions,
The conversation keeps moving without us.
I've noticed that overthinking doesn't always feel dramatic.
That's true.
Sometimes it's incredibly quiet.
Exactly. It's not panic. It's hesitation.
Just one extra second.
Then another.
Then another.
Until someone changes the subject.
I never thought about it that way.
Overthinking rarely shouts. It whispers.
That's a beautiful way to describe it.
It says things like, maybe don't say that.
Wait until you explain it better.
Maybe someone else has a smarter answer.
Before you know it, the opportunity has disappeared.
And the strange part is that silence feels safe in the moment.
But afterward,
It often becomes regret.
I wonder how many opportunities people miss simply because they wait for the perfect sentence.
Probably more than we realize.
Can I ask everyone listening a small question?
Go ahead.
Think about the last conversation where you stayed quieter than you wanted to. It could have been at work, with friends, in class, or even ordering coffee.
Don't judge yourself.
Just remember it.
What were you thinking in that moment?
Were you worried about making a mistake?
Or were you trying to sound perfect?
Sometimes simply becoming aware of those thoughts is the beginning of real confidence.
That's something psychology teaches us again and again.
Tell me more.
Our brains naturally try to avoid uncomfortable situations. Thousands of years ago, avoiding danger helped humans survive.
That makes sense.
But today, our brains sometimes treat social situations as if they're dangerous too.
Even though we're just talking to another person.
Exactly.
It's funny because nobody is chasing us.
No one's running after us with a checklist of grammar mistakes.
Yet our minds sometimes behave as if they are.
That's because the brain doesn't always separate physical danger from emotional discomfort.
So embarrassment can feel much bigger than it actually is.
Right.
I remember giving a short presentation years ago.
How did it go?
Honestly, better than I expected.
Then why do I feel like there's a twist coming?
Because afterward, I only remembered one tiny mistake.
Let me guess.
Nobody else mentioned it.
Exactly.
People thanked me. They asked questions. Some even complimented the presentation.
But your brain kept replaying that one moment.
Over and over.
That's another habit of the human mind.
Focusing on what went wrong instead of everything that went right.
Which is why confidence isn't about never making mistakes.
It's about not allowing small mistakes to define the entire experience.
I like that.
Me too.
Here's another way to think about it.
I'm listening.
Imagine learning to play the piano.
Okay.
Would anyone expect to play a beautiful song perfectly on the first day?
Of course not.
Then why do we expect ourselves to communicate perfectly in every conversation?
That's such a good question.
Communication is also a skill.
And skills grow through practice.
Not through perfection.
That's something worth remembering.
Absolutely.
And maybe today's conversation can remind all of us that finding our voice isn't about becoming fearless.
It's about speaking, even when the voice in our head says, maybe stay quiet.
Because every meaningful conversation begins with one simple decision.
To let your real voice be louder than your fearful thoughts.
You know, Ethan, something you just said really stayed with me.
Which part?
Let your real voice be louder than your fearful thoughts. I think that's something people can carry with them long after this episode ends.
I hope so. Because when we talk about confidence, people often imagine someone who's naturally outgoing or fearless. But confidence usually looks much quieter than that.
How so?
It's choosing to speak even when your heart is beating a little faster. It's asking a question even when you're not completely sure how it will sound. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that your message matters more than your fear.
I love that distinction. It makes confidence feel achievable instead of something only a few lucky people are born with.
Exactly. And there's another reason overthinking becomes such a trap.
What's that?
It creates the illusion that thinking longer will always produce a better outcome.
That's true. Sometimes it does. If you're solving a math problem or planning a trip, taking more time can help. But conversations are different.
Because conversations are happening in real time.
Right. They're like a dance. If you spend too long deciding your next step, the music keeps playing.
That's such a relatable example.
Think about two friends chatting over lunch. Neither of them is carefully editing every sentence before speaking. They react, they laugh, they interrupt each other sometimes. They pause. The conversation flows because they're focused on each other, not on sounding impressive.
Which is interesting because many English learners think fluent speakers never hesitate.
Oh, that's one of the biggest myths.
Really?
Absolutely. Native speakers pause. They lose their train of thought. They say things like, hang on, or what was I trying to say?
they change words halfway through a sentence.
I do that all the time.
Me too. Natural conversation isn't perfect. It's flexible.
That's actually a useful English expression. Lose your train of thought.
It is. If you lose your train of thought, you simply forget what you were about to say. It happens to everyone.
And instead of feeling embarrassed, you can smile and say, "Sorry, I lost my train of thought."
Exactly. Notice how that small phrase allows the conversation to continue instead of stopping completely?
That's something I appreciate about everyday English. There are so many simple expressions that make conversations feel more relaxed.
Yes. Expressions like, "Give me a second," "Let me think," or "That's a good question." They're completely natural, and they buy you a little time without making the conversation awkward.
I think many listeners believe they need long, impressive sentences to sound confident.
But confidence often sounds surprisingly simple.
That's true.
Let me tell you about someone I met during a communication workshop. I'd love to hear it. There was a young engineer who almost never spoke during group discussions. Whenever the team asked for ideas, he'd lower his eyes and stay quiet.
Was he shy?
That's what everyone assumed. But during a break, we started talking, and he had incredible ideas. He was thoughtful, creative, and funny.
So what was holding him back?
I asked him that exact question. He smiled and said something I'll never forget. He said, "I spend so much time trying to say the smartest thing that I end up saying nothing."
Wow.
That sentence stayed with me because I think many people live that way.
They're waiting for the perfect contribution.
Exactly. They believe every comment has to be brilliant.
But conversations don't work like that.
Not at all. Imagine having coffee with a close friend. You're not expecting a motivational speech every 5 minutes.
You're just sharing thoughts.
Sometimes they're deep.
Sometimes they're completely ordinary.
And both are valuable.
I've noticed that the people I enjoy talking to most aren't necessarily the smartest people I know.
Really?
They're the people who make me feel comfortable. They listen. They're curious. They don't make every conversation a competition. That's emotional intelligence. It really is. Great communicators aren't always the ones with the biggest vocabulary. They're often the ones who make other people feel seen and heard. That's such a refreshing way to think about communication.
It shifts the focus.
Instead of asking, "How do I sound?"
You begin asking, "How can I connect?"
I think that one small change could reduce so much overthinking.
I agree.
Because when you're genuinely curious about another person,
Your attention naturally moves away from judging yourself.
that's such an important psychological insight.
Our minds have limited attention. If all your attention is focused on your own performance, there's very little left for listening.
And listening is one of the most important parts of communication.
Exactly. Ironically, becoming a better listener often makes you a better speaker.
Can we pause for another little reflection?
Absolutely.
Wherever you are right now, think of someone you genuinely enjoy talking to.
It could be a friend, a family member, a colleague, or even someone you don't see very often.
Now, ask yourself this.
Do you enjoy talking to them because they always say perfect things?
Or because they make you feel comfortable being yourself?
I think most people already know the answer.
And maybe that's exactly what the people around you are looking for as well.
Not perfection.
Presence.
That's a beautiful word.
It really is. Being fully present is much more powerful than trying to be impressive.
And maybe that's the biggest lesson from today's conversation so far.
That our voice becomes stronger the moment we stop trying to sound perfect.
Because communication isn't a performance.
It's a connection.
There's a quote I once heard that fits perfectly here. It says, "People won't always remember your exact words, but they'll remember how you made them feel."
I love that quote.
Me too. And every time I remember it, I stop worrying so much about finding the perfect sentence.
Because the goal isn't to deliver a flawless performance.
It's to create a genuine moment with another person.
You know, there's another habit I've noticed in people who overthink.
What's that?
They often confuse preparation with control.
That's interesting. Tell me more.
Preparing for a conversation is helpful. Thinking about what you want to say can give you confidence. But sometimes we keep preparing because we're secretly hoping we can control every possible outcome.
Ah, yes.
We imagine every question someone might ask,
Every possible misunderstanding.
every awkward silence.
Every opinion they might have.
And by the time the conversation actually begins,
Are mentally exhausted.
exactly.
That's one of the biggest differences between planning and overthinking.
How would you explain it?
Planning helps you move forward. Overthinking keeps you standing still.
That's such a simple way to remember it.
Think of someone preparing for an interview.
Okay.
It's helpful to learn about the company, think about your experience, and practice answering a few common questions.
That's healthy preparation.
Right. But imagine practicing every answer hundreds of times because you're afraid of making one tiny mistake.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. At that point, preparation has quietly turned into anxiety.
And anxiety rarely helps us communicate better.
Usually, it does the opposite.
It reminds me of another English expression that listeners might enjoy.
Which one?
To get in your own way.
That's a great expression.
If you get in your own way, you become the obstacle to your own success.
Exactly. Nobody else is stopping you. Your own thoughts are.
For example, you might say, I was ready to share my idea, but I got in my own way.
Or, she gets in her own way because she worries too much about being perfect.
It's such a useful phrase because I think many people recognize themselves in it.
I certainly do.
Me too.
Can I tell you about a small experiment I tried a few months ago?
Absolutely.
I decided that for 1 week, whenever I caught myself rewriting a message more than twice, I'd stop editing and simply send it.
That sounds difficult.
At first, it was.
Were you nervous?
Very. My brain kept saying, just check it one more time.
I know that feeling.
But after a few days, something surprising happened.
What happened?
Almost nobody reacted the way my anxious mind had predicted.
Really?
People understood the message. They replied naturally. Some even responded within seconds.
So all that extra editing wasn't really necessary?
Most of the time, no.
That's such an important lesson.
Our minds are excellent at imagining problems that never actually happen.
And that's another interesting piece of psychology.
Our brains often confuse possibility with probability.
Can you explain that?
Sure. Is it possible that someone misunderstands your words?
Yes,
Is it possible that someone disagrees with you?
of course.
Is it possible that you'll forget a word in English?
Definitely.
But possible doesn't mean likely.
That's such an important distinction.
Overthinking treats every unlikely situation as if it's almost guaranteed to happen.
Which explains why fear feels so convincing.
Exactly. Our imagination becomes more persuasive than reality.
I think this is where self-compassion becomes so important.
I couldn't agree more.
We often speak to ourselves in ways we'd never speak to a friend.
That's true.
Imagine your friend says, I forgot one English word during a conversation.
You'd probably smile and say that's completely normal.
Exactly.
You wouldn't say, well, clearly you'll never become fluent.
Of course not.
Yeah, that's exactly how many people talk to themselves.
It's amazing how kind we can be to others.
And how demanding we can be toward ourselves.
Maybe confidence doesn't begin with speaking more.
What do you think it begins with?
Being kinder to the person who's doing the speaking.
I love that.
Because if your inner voice is constantly criticizing you,
It's very difficult for your real voice to feel free.
so perhaps one of the simplest habits we can build is replacing criticism with curiosity.
Instead of saying, why am I so bad at this?
Ask, What can I learn from this conversation?
Instead of, I embarrassed myself.
Try, I was brave enough to speak.
That small change doesn't ignore mistakes.
It simply gives them a healthier meaning.
And over time, those healthier thoughts create healthier habits.
Which eventually create greater confidence.
One conversation at a time.
You know, Ethan, something we've talked about today keeps coming back to me.
What's that?
The idea that our voice doesn't disappear because we have nothing to say. It disappears because we've convinced ourselves that what we have to say isn't good enough.
That's a powerful realization.
It is. And I think it explains why two people with the same knowledge can communicate so differently.
Exactly. One person trusts that their imperfect words are still worth sharing. The other keeps waiting for perfect words that never arrive.
So in many cases, confidence isn't about having better English.
It's about having a healthier relationship with yourself.
That reminds me of something I read recently.
Tell me.
It said, the quality of your life is often shaped by the quality of the conversations you're willing to have.
I like that.
Because conversations create opportunities.
They create friendships,
New ideas,
better relationships,
career opportunities,
even moments that completely change our lives.
which means every time fear convinces us to stay silent,
We may also be saying no to an opportunity we can't even see yet.
that's something worth thinking about.
Absolutely.
Can I tell you a story about someone I met while traveling?
Please do.
I was sitting in a small cafe, and an older gentleman asked if the seat next to me was free.
Simple enough.
We started talking about coffee, then books, then travel. What surprised me was that his English wasn't perfect. Every now and then he'd pause and search for a word.
Did that make the conversation awkward?
Not at all. In fact, it made the conversation feel more genuine. He wasn't trying to impress me. He was simply sharing his experiences.
And I imagine you remembered his stories much more than his grammar.
Exactly.
That's something listeners should really remember.
Communication is about sharing meaning.
Not performing flawlessly.
By the time we finished our coffee, we'd been talking for almost an hour.
That's wonderful.
And as we said goodbye, he smiled and said, I almost didn't ask if this seat was free because I worried my English wasn't good enough.
Really?
Yes,
Imagine if he'd listened to that thought.
we would have missed an unforgettable conversation.
That's such a beautiful example of how one small moment of courage can lead to something meaningful.
It also reminds us that courage often looks very ordinary.
It isn't always standing on a stage or making a big speech,
Sometimes courage is simply saying hello
or asking a question,
or sharing an opinion.
or admitting you don't understand something.
Those moments may seem small.
But they slowly reshape the way we see ourselves.
I've noticed something else.
What's that?
Every confident communicator I've met seems comfortable with not knowing everything.
That's true.
They're happy to say, I'm not sure.
Or, that's an interesting question. Or even, I need a moment to think.
And strangely enough, those phrases don't make them sound less confident.
They actually make them sound more authentic.
Exactly. Confidence isn't pretending to know everything.
It's trusting that you don't have to,
That's a lesson many of us spend years learning.
especially if we're perfectionists.
Yes, because perfectionism quietly tells us that every conversation is a test, when in reality, most conversations are simply opportunities to connect.
I think we've reached a point where we should leave our listeners with something practical.
I was thinking the same thing.
If someone listening today wants to stop overthinking, what's one small habit they could begin this week?
I'd suggest something very simple.
At least once each day, say the first kind, thoughtful thing that comes to your mind, instead of editing it.
I like that.
If you appreciate someone's work, tell them.
If you're curious about something, ask.
If you have an idea, share it.
Don't wait until it sounds perfect. Because the habit you're really building isn't perfect speaking. It's trusting your own voice.
Exactly.
And maybe that's the biggest message from today's conversation. Your voice doesn't become stronger because fear disappears. It becomes stronger every time you choose not to let fear make the decision for you.
One sentence at a time.
One conversation at a time.
One courageous moment at a time.
If today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to take a moment and reflect on something.
Think about one conversation you've been avoiding.
Maybe it's speaking English with someone new.
Maybe it's sharing an idea at work.
Or perhaps it's simply telling someone how you truly feel. Ask yourself, what's the smallest first step I can take? Because meaningful change rarely begins with giant leaps. It usually begins with one honest sentence. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We truly hope today's conversation reminds you that your thoughts matter, your experiences matter, and your voice deserves to be heard, even when it isn't perfect.
And before we say goodbye, we'd love to hear from you.
What's one moment when overthinking stopped you from speaking? And if you could go back, what would you say now?
Share your story in the comments. You never know who might read it and realize they're not alone.
Thank you for listening. Take good care of yourself and remember,
your voice doesn't have to be perfect to make a difference.
We'll see you in the next conversation. Goodbye.
Take care, everyone. Keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep speaking.